Russians protested again on Saturday against President Vladimir Putin's decision to send more troops to his floundering military campaign in Ukraine, organizing dispersed protests in dozens of towns throughout the country despite threats of detention and a strong police presence. According to the human rights monitoring organization OVD-INFO, over 700 individuals had been held countrywide as darkness approached, with the bulk of arrests taking place in Moscow and St. Petersburg. The protests occurred as Russians grappled with the fallout from the Kremlin's decision to call up an extra 300,000 soldiers for the military war, a move President Putin has described as partial mobilization. "I haven't heard Putin mention the term war yet. And how can there be a mobilization if there is no war?" Natalia Zarina, a retired university professor, told NPR in an interview. "He's summoning our young men to die for nothing. I just couldn't remain at home," Zarina added. Confusion about who would be called up has resulted in a mass exodus of young men from Russia, with enormous lineups developing at the nation's borders and flying tickets out of the country scarce. According to rights organizations, protests against the draft attempt earlier this week resulted in more than 1,300 arrests. So far, it seems that the majority of demonstrators in Moscow are young Russian women, after earlier this week's rallies in which arrested young males were issued conscription documents while in police custody. On a wet Saturday in Moscow, police and OMON riot soldiers looked to be well positioned ahead of a late afternoon demonstration at a site chosen at the last minute by organizers. Putin has said that he would not amend the constitution. He altered the state constitution. Putin said that there would be no mobilization, yet here we are at the Moscow demonstration, a young guy in his 20s told NPR. He didn't have a chance to say his name before OMON forces stormed in, reviewed his paperwork, and whisked him away. Anastasia, a designer who refused to provide her last name out of fear for her safety, said she came to see whether she was alone in her outrage at Putin's decision to send more soldiers into a war she had never supported. "I have 2 relatives who have been directly affected by this decision, but they are currently on their way out of the country," she says NPR. "What is occurring is a tragedy," she continued through tears. NPR saw several dozen arrests as police examined papers and arrested people apparently at random. "I was just getting out of the metro," one guy cried as he was shoved up against the side of a police truck. Later, online images showed riot soldiers detaining individuals in a tourist park overlooking the Kremlin, including one guy dressed in a food delivery suit. There were also violent scenes. In St. Petersburg, a video circulated on the internet showing riot police hitting a teenage demonstrator on the head as he lay on the ground.